Thank you for tuning in to the Air Rescue Heating and Cooling YouTube channel. I'm going to take a few minutes and talk about a couple of things that have come up in the last few days. The first part of it is just about refrigerant and leaks in your air conditioning system in general. And the second part, sort of a segue into the bigger thing I want to talk about, which is sort of a home buyer beware informational session about going out and buying. If you're buying a used home, a home that's a few years old, 20 years old or whatever, and should you be cautious about the air conditioning system? So first of all, I've gotten a couple of questions on this week. Talked to a couple of different real estate agents on the phone about issues they were having with houses they were trying to close on, and that's what brought me to take a few minutes and talk about this. First off, as we've discussed before, air conditioning units use refrigerant to remove heat and cool your home. And those systems are sealed units. Those are sealed systems when they're installed. So just picking a number, if your air conditioning system has got 5 pounds of refrigerant in it when it was installed 5 years ago, then today it should still have 5 pounds of refrigerant in it. If it doesn't have 5 pounds of refrigerant in it, it's because it leaked out. Refrigerant is not a fuel. It's not a consumable item. Your air conditioner doesn't use it, doesn't burn it. It's not like a battery. It just changes state from a gas to a liquid, from a gas to a liquid in your air conditioning system, and that's how it removes heat and provides cooling in your home. So if you are having to have an HVAC company come out and put refrigerant in your AC system, one of two things has occurred. Either you have a leak, which is most often the case, or your air conditioning system never had the right amount of refrigerant in it from the day it was installed. More times than not, especially on a unit that's several years old, sometimes on new home purchases, new systems in homes, we'll see that the unit was never properly charged with refrigerant when it was installed. And that happens because you've got subcontract rough-in install crews that are installing these systems in new homes. The condenser part of the air conditioning unit, which is the outside part, comes pre-charged with refrigerant from the factory. So the rough-in guys, subcontract guys, will do an install on these systems on new homes. They'll just release the refrigerant into the system, and whatever happens to be there is there. Now, I'd like to think that they have the HVAC companies have a detail guy or a startup guy that comes back around after that, and a lot of them do, to verify operation of the system and make sure that the refrigerant charge is good. But I will tell you, I've been out a number of times on homes that are a year or maybe a little more old. People have been through one summer in their new home, and they just say that the air conditioner is just not working like they thought it should, or it's not cooling the home well, and find that the system is low on refrigerant. So it does happen, but the most common cause of refrigerant needing to be added to your system is some sort of a leak, and that typically happens on a unit that's a few years old to a decade or more old. Excuse me. That has sprung some sort of spontaneous leak. 90% of the time, I'd say, just me talking, that happens in the evaporator coil in the attic. You have corrosion that occurs, rust that occurs, all kinds of things that happens in that when that wet evaporator coil is doing its work all the time, and that's usually where the leak will develop. Now, leaks can occur in other places. I've fixed leaks all over the place. Some of them are man-made. Sometimes they're a little bit of a defect from the time the unit was manufactured. I had a unit the other day that from manufacturing, there were two pieces of copper rubbing together. Had probably been that way for 7 or 8 years since the system was installed. But after 7 or 8 years of vibration and those two pieces of copper rubbing together, one finally rubbed a hole in the other, and the refrigerant leaked out of the system. So we were able to find that, patch that leak, charge the system back up, and the customer's good to go. So let's talk about that as it relates to home purchases. That's really the phone calls I got this week. I had a real estate agent call me because they had a copy of a work order that I had done about a month earlier, where I'd gone out to a home and found a unit that was low on R22, unfortunately. The homeowner had asked me to add some refrigerant. I think it was a couple of pounds, which I did. The unit was cooling fine. I discussed with the customer the probability that there was a leak in the system somewhere. And the customer didn't want to pursue it any further at that point, so I moved on and they moved on. So then a month later, I get a call from a real estate agent, which happens to be the agent representing the customer, the buying party of the home, saying that they had a copy of my work order and they see that I'd added refrigerant. They were over there checking on some things at the house because they were supposed to close in short order and had had the air conditioner running for 20 minutes and it wasn't cooling the house down. So most probably the refrigerant that I had added a month or so ago had probably leaked out, and I'm sure the unit wasn't cooling. So my point to that story is I'm not judging anybody for what's going on there. I know it happens all the time. To be perfectly honest, my home that I'm in today, we purchased about 2 years ago. The home was 10 or 11 years old when we purchased it. And when I got into the home, we moved in December. By spring, pretty quickly, I discovered that I didn't have much refrigerant left in the system and that I had a leak in the evaporator coil. Fortunately for me, the evaporator coil was still under warranty with Lennox. I was able to get it replaced. I changed the evaporator coil out and we were good to go. But obviously the average homeowner is not, that's not a DIY type of job. And moving into a home and discovering that you have a leak in the evaporator coil on a coil that's not under warranty, and sometimes even on one that is, can be a $1,800, $2,000, $2,500 repair pretty easily as a general rule. So just be when you're moving into a home that you're buying, especially a used home. I'm going to do a different video, buyer beware video on new homes. I've had the opportunity earlier this year to do inspections on a bunch of new home construction that were just in rough-in stage, and then look at some homes that were having customer complaints. The homeowner had typically been in the homes less than a year and were having reoccurring problems with the air conditioner. I was asked to go out and do an assessment, write some reports on what I found, and I found what we know in the industry to occur oftentimes, which is on new home construction, oftentimes the rough end, the install of the air conditioning, the quality is somewhat lacking. I'm going to do a separate video on some home I just looked at here in the last couple of weeks so that you get a better idea of what I'm talking about. But if you're buying a used home, you know, you get your period to have folks come out and inspect stuff, and people all the time will have a home inspector come out, and home inspectors are awesome. But they know a little bit about a lot of stuff. And so their typical checking of the air conditioner is to turn the unit on, and if the supply air and return air temperatures are 15 to 20 degrees apart, then they deem the air conditioner typically as working okay. Problem with that is homeowner could have just had an air conditioning company come out and put refrigerant in that unit the day before or a couple of days before you had your home inspector come, and nobody would be any of the wiser. I oftentimes will see where a real estate agent or a home inspector will recommend to the home buyer that they have maintenance done on the unit before they close. And that's a good, certainly good advice, is to make sure that the unit's been serviced. But my recommendation is that if you're buying a used home, that you maybe foot the bill for yourself, contact an air conditioning company that you trust, and have them go out and do a true assessment on the heating and AC system before you make the purchase of the home. Not that you wouldn't buy the house, because most people do anyway, but it may put you into a position that I know I'm buying a house with a 12-year-old air conditioner in it, and it quite possibly has a leak in the evaporator coil or some other component that's on the edge of failure, and you can negotiate money in the closing to help cover replacement of those items. I just hate to see any home buyer, buy a home and then right off the bat get stuck with some type of expensive repair. Because let's face it, foundation, roofs, and heating and air conditioning systems are the things that will eat your lunch when you go out to buy a home. So if you have any questions, as always, contact us, email us. Our main number, 469-294-2616. Check us out on the web, www.airrescuehvac.com. Thanks and have a great day.